health and peace and happiness for everyone. Ashreinu, how good and beautiful is our heritage. Parashat Re'eh, Tafshin Pei-Bet. So what do you think about John Lennon's Imagine? I think there are some beautiful things about it. For instance, here, how about these lines? Imagine all the people living a life in peace. Beautiful. Or how about imagine a brotherhood of man. Sorry, I'm not going to sing the whole thing. It'll take too long. Imagine all the people sharing all the world. I hope someday you'll join us and the world will live as one. Beautiful. But also, imagine there's no heaven. Not in the sense of Gan Eden. There's nothing above us. There's nothing higher, just the sky, he says. How about an authority above us? How about aspirations for things that are higher and loftier than just the life in this world? He also says, imagine all the people living for today. That's just it. How about a future? How about improving the world? And no religion too. So some things in the song Imagine, I definitely do not identify with. And what does Parashat Re'eh have to say about this? Moshe Rabbeinu is about to separate from Am Yisrael. They will enter into Eretz Yisrael without him. We see several times in Sefer Dvarim that Moshe is afraid of the people of Israel learning Avodah Zarah, to worship other gods from the nations in Eretz Yisrael. Also in this parasha, Moshe says, Hishamer lecha, beware, lest you inquire about their gods, saying, how did these nations serve their gods? Ve'esechen gam ani, and I will do likewise. And then Moshe brings some instructions. If there is a prophet who gives a heavenly sign to say that we should worship other gods, he has given the death penalty. If one entices another person to worship other gods, same thing, death penalty. And then, if a whole city is enticed to worship other gods, this city is called Ir HaNidachat, a condemned city. The inhabitants of that city are given the death penalty. The city and everything in it are burned, and the city must remain in ruins forever, never to be built again. This is a very harsh decree, a very harsh judgment, very strict judgment. So the Torah says, Hashem will grant you compassion. V'natan lecha rachamim. But in Masechet Sanhedrin and Abraita, we learn that this situation of Ir HaNidachat, a condemned city, never was and never will be. Why then was this law written? The Gemara says, the Braita says, Drosh v'kabel sachar. Study it and receive a reward. This is seemingly so strange. The Torah puts in a mitzvah that is never going to happen just so that we can study it and get a reward for studying Torah that is never going to happen. What does this mean? Can't mean that. What I think it means is that the Torah is telling us something that is not going to happen practically, but we have something to learn from it. We have to learn from it that this is a very harsh judgment, a condemned city. There are all kinds of details discussed in Torah Sheba'al Peh. We're not going to get into that, but it's a very harsh judgment. And this is what one side of Hashem's judgment says, this is what should be done to Ir HaNidachat. But there's also an attribute of mercy to Hashem. And Hashem says, practically, don't carry that out. But I want you to learn something from this, that there is a side in the world where if a whole city worships other gods, it should be destroyed. We shouldn't be flexible. Oh, you can worship Hashem or you can worship other gods. It's not so bad. No, we have to be very serious about this, even though we are not going to burn down and the whole city and kill all the people in a practical sense. And this idea of drosh v'kabel sachar, something which is not halachically going to happen, but at the same time we must study it and learn something from it. By the way, this is the sachar. The reward is not that we get paid for learning Torah. The reward is what we learn from it. Let's look at another pasuk in Parashat Re'eh. The Torah says you shall destroy, abed te'abdun, you should destroy the places where the nations worship their gods. You shall tear down their altars, smash their monuments, and burn them with fire. So this is a halacha, and today in our world, we won't carry that out either. We're not going to burn down places of worship of other nations, even if they are Avodah Zarah. Why won't we burn them down? Some people will say, well, if we were stronger, we would. But I would agree with a different opinion that says that once in the past, wars were fought in the world without restrictions. We're still not in a day where we don't have wars in the world, but at least we have restrictions on wars. But in the past, you had to fight. You had to win the war. It was either you win, you live, or you lose the war, etc. So the same thing with religions. Religions would fight with violence, would wage war against one another. So Am Yisrael had to wage war for our religion. But today in the world, it's a better place. The world is in a better place in that sense. We argue, we try to convince, we try to prove that we have the truth, but we're not going to be violent about it. That is not going to get to a positive place in today's world. So we can learn from the idea of the condemned city, Ira Nidachat, to take this pasuk also to say, Drosh v'kabel sachar. We read these psukim in the Torah about waging war against other religions, and we learn that it's not flexible. There are two different extremes in the world today. There are people who don't want to struggle for anything. Everybody just do your own thing, and everything's okay. And then there are people who are going to be violent to get their way in the world, and we don't want either of those extremes today. We are not going to wage war violently against another religion. That doesn't mean that we accept anything, and whatever people do, that's okay. We can be more accepting of other people from different religions. We can see positive aspects to other religions, but we believe in the Torah of Hashem, and we have to struggle to prove that that is true, and that this is what is good for the world, and not to be accepting that everything is equal in the world. This is a drosh v'kabel sachar that we can take from Parashat Re'eh. So John Lennon wanted to reach world peace in the whole world by having no religion. And I believe that religion is what is in the long run going to bring us to a world where there will be peace, with spiritual aspirations, with belief in a power above us, and so on. Why is it religion that is going to bring world peace? That's longer for another time. And for now, Shabbat Shalom.